Yeah. Ooh. Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Hey. Oh. Hey. Ooh. Hey. Hey. Yeah. All right. Okay. What is good, y'all? It is your boy, Jonathan Dumas, and this is Highly Visible and a Little Misunderstood, the show where we talk to the people we see every day because we don't know what we miss until we miss them. And, y'all, we are back. Gotta stop saying that. That's not right at all. We are not back. It's a force of habit. We're not back. We are working on the new theme, and we will hopefully be back by the end of April. But it's probably going to be the beginning of May. Hold me to it. But in the meantime, we decided, we got so many dope episodes in the archives. Why not share them with the YouTube side of the show? So yeah, last week we had Mariah Poitier on talking about our experiences at a evangelical white institution for our college experience, and it was very interesting. This week, we are continuing kind of that theme of exploring spirituality with another conversation I had with my wonderful friend, Warrick, aka Saint War. He's also a musician, where we met in a evangelical church while we both were singing on the worship team. Y'all didn't know that your boy can sing. Your boy got, it's been a little bit, but if I could tune it up, you know what I mean? But that's where me and him met, and we have a really great conversation around our spirituality, around our faith, how it's evolved, how it's changed. And although we recorded this like a couple through 3 years ago, like it still lands, it still feels very true to where I'm at today. So I'm really excited for y'all to tap into this episode. One thing about this episode is I could not recover the video for it, but because this episode meant so much to me, it actually is on the audio side one of our most popular episodes. Y'all just tap in. I promise you, if you listen in, like, you will not regret it, especially those who are experiencing, kind of like this faith deconstruction. If you're just now going through it, if you've been through it in the past, like I feel like this will really resonate with you. And if you're exploring your own spirituality, it still hits home. It's a really good episode, y'all. There's just no video. So there's that. 2 other things before we get to the conversation. The first thing is like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment, share your thoughts, share what you think of some of these episodes. I respond to as many comments as I can, and apparently it helps with the algorithm. Okay, so the second thing is I know I mentioned in the last episode how you can actually participate in this new season, and that's by sharing your thoughts about what's bringing you joy in this season. I know there's a lot of things that are making it very difficult to experience joy. Just open social media and take your pick, anything. But we really want to explore joy this season, not just as a feeling, but as something maybe we return to that we can tap into when times are hard, when times are difficult, or when times are easy. Just like, is it folding laundry? Is it, being with friends? Is it eating your favorite meal? Is it when you're resisting like injustice? Any of those things. We want to tap into that. I am really excited about some of the guests we're going to have on, but I want to hear from you. What is joy to you? What's currently bringing you joy in this season of life? Or just finish the sentence, joy is, okay? Send a short voice memo or video, 30 seconds or less, please. Or you could share your poem, share a picture of your art piece, share a photo that you've taken, anything that like resonates with joy. When you hear joy, like, you could share that. You could email us that at highlyvisiblepodcast@gmail.com. Or there is a form down below that I created that you could just fill out. Just click that link. It'll take you to a form. You could fill out that information, submit your joy thought. Really would love to hear from you, and you just might appear on the podcast. And if you don't want to appear on the podcast, you don't have to. If you still want to submit something, you could just say, hey, I don't want this on the pod. I just wanted to share it with you. And those are always greatly appreciated as well. So thanks so much, y'all. I don't have anything else. Here is my conversation with my guy, Warrick. So Warrick, how would you describe yourself?
Great question. Well, first of all, I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, so it could take me years to actually describe myself because I will panic. But yeah, I actually just got this question the other day from someone as well, and it's taken a long time to get to this point. But when it comes to like how I kind of categorize the different identities that I hold, you know, I grew up charismatic evangelical. I have a very high pedigree when it comes to the evangelical church. Didn't even realize that until I like looked back at my history. But for a long time, first thing I identified as was a Christian, because that's what we're taught. That transcends basically every other identifier, every other thing about you. And today, if I'm asked, like the first thing I identify as is black, because I didn't choose to be black. It's just who I am. That's not something that I get to walk away from. That is something that is actively influencing the way that I interact with the world, basically at all times. And so yeah, I am black. I am queer, specifically somewhere on the pansexual spectrum. And currently, I don't ascribe to a specific faith tradition. We can hash this out later, but came out of like the the evangelical church. I've been exploring more ancestral practices. So I did a DNA test a while back, as everyone likes to do, you know, and
Amazing.
yeah, I'm doing my best to like trace my ancestry and kind of just open myself up to, you know, what would my ancestors have been practicing, what would they have been believing when they were brought over on slave ships. And so yeah, I think that that's something that doesn't really, it's not even in pop culture very much. It's like you don't hear about African religion or spirituality very often in mainstream. And so yeah, that's something that I've been connecting with, which has been really cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah. I'm also a musician, a singer, songwriter, producer. So that's a huge aspect of my life. And
You are indeed dropping fire.
You know, you are too. You are too.
We're going to get into like the role music played in your life like a little bit later, but I really want to dive into like the African spirituality, because you're right, that hasn't been something that's like talked about in mainstream. It's not explored too much. And just like a lot of things, like there are some roots back to like black spirituality of the things that we experience and do every single day. What are some of the things that you've discovered or found or started to implement in your like your own individual faith tradition now?
Yeah. I don't know if it's okay to like kind of start at what decolonizing has looked like in that process. I won't go into it too heavily, but I think at the beginning, it was really important to me to kind of take a step back from my faith tradition and be like, okay, what do I actually genuinely feel is true, and what has been conditioned in me basically from the moment I was born. And in doing that, you know, just realized how much of a part slavery has played in the spread of Christianity. And it's not like that's new information, but once I actually started to internalize that like, oh, my faith tradition is one of conquering and oppression. That kind of led me to kind of take a step back into my quote unquote roots. And so, yeah, I've traced a lot of my African DNA to Nigeria, which is like pretty common, and the Yoruba people. But yeah, so I just like, I studied cultural anthropology. So like it's already in me to want to know like literally everything about everything. So I just went on like the black hole, got my weed, got my computer, and was just like, yeah.
I love it.
I've got some books on the way on African spirituality. So, sorry, I got to take a step back. But part of this whole process for me was my relationship with, like my personal relationship with the Holy Spirit or God, which is something that I've felt has been consistent throughout my life, regardless of whatever teaching I'm under or ministry I'm in. I'm like, I've always had a very personal just knowing like deep in me of God, and I've been open to, I'm like, God could look different than the way that he's been presented to me. But so I started to examine. I'm like, okay, so this spirit, this voice, this whatever that I still feel, it's possible that it's not, it doesn't belong to Christianity specifically, that it's also present in other forms of spirituality, other cultures. And so kind of started looking into the African pantheon and practices, and just saw a really holistic way of life in it. And I've had like tiny little experiences here and there, like nothing where I'm like, oh, I'm in this now, but just like in the opening myself up to it, I've experienced a much more rich, I think, spiritual practice than I'd had before.
As I've had my own deconstructive process, like I too, you mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily prescribe to like Christianity, that Christian faith necessarily, and I would say that similarly, yes. For myself, I think as I've decolonized and deconstructed what that means, I think one, it's been scary for Linz because like she's going through her own deconstructive process, but also two, for me, like there's been this picture, painted for me, and basically I have been told that this is what this is, like this is how it's supposed to be, and anytime I like questioned it, it was very like beaten out of me, not physically, but like. You understand what I'm saying, like the beaten out of you, just like shamed out of you, like doubt is shamed. Yes. Shamed out of you, all these different things. And so in my own process, I've looked at that and been wanting to dive deeper into kind of like the roots and figuring out kind of like what my people believed, how they interacted, not only with like the spirit, the great beyond, the other, but also the earth, like Mother Earth, examining like intertwining relationship between all of creation. So no, it's really interesting. We got to talk more about that when I dive deeper into it. I can't really speak to it right now. So,
I mean, I can only speak very little because
okay,
that's the other thing is I'm like, I'm not about to appropriate or incorporate something that I don't understand just because like I feel an affinity to it. I'm like, this is something that I deeply care about, and so I want to make sure that I'm doing right by it, because.
That's a good point.
if these are like real spiritual realities that we're dealing with, then at a very basic level, it's like, yeah, let's not mess with shit that we don't understand. But
no, for real, I'm just gonna go down this rabbit hole with you. So because I think that happens a lot, even in Christendom, right? Of like, oh, this is cool, this like cool spiritual discipline. And then it's just like taken up, but there's no like real articulation of that tradition or whatever it is. I don't know.
Totally.
I don't know. Yeah. Let's just say meditation, because like there is some deep grounding that needs to take place instead of just like sitting there and doing a journal entry and just like sitting in silence for like 2 minutes. I'm like, that's cool, but like meditation is like this deep intentional practice that like takes years and years and years and years to like get to a place where you are so deeply connected. I think similarly with like even as we're exploring other faith traditions, like having a deep understanding for me is like incredibly important, that I understand what I'm actually practicing.
Yeah, that's actually just one more little rabbit trail.
Go ahead.
There, but I think that's something that I find interesting actually about Christianity, because on one hand, like one of the positives to it is that theoretically anyone from any creed, race, gender, I say sexuality, some other people would disagree.
No, let's go ahead and add sexuality.
But can participate, because at its core, like it's about a man named Jesus and relationship with that man, with God. And so, on a surface level, it should be very easy to participate in that religion. On the other hand, the easiness of that transition also makes it, I think it's caused a lot of people to lose the intricacies, the tradition, the some of the horrors and atrocities of the religion, because anyone can just claim Jesus and go on their merry way. And so like with something like African tradition, or really actually just a lot of other different religions, there's processes, there's rituals, there's ancestor veneration. There's like a lot of elements that contribute, and you can't just be like Ocean, who's like one of the Orishas. I love you. Like,
Yeah.
come into my heart. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not how it works. You have to actually understand what it is you're doing.
As you're talking, I just thought about like how. So let's get really specific, because I think generalizing like all Christians are like this, or all faith traditions within Christianity, because there's like sub levels to this, right? But I think very specifically within the American church, because of hypercapitalism, because of ethnocentrism, or even like hyper nationalism and Christian nationalism, that like there is this fast paced, like you need to get this and this is how you do it because we do it right, because America's the best kind of mentality when it approaches even like faith, which again doesn't leave room for doubt, or doesn't leave room for questioning or tweaking or even critique, and especially we're looking at like from January 6th. I mean, it's February 25th when we're recording this, but like I've just started to see some stuff about like some pastors that I still follow, because I still have a little bit of respect for them, of saying like we denounce Christian nationalism. And it's just like, it's been a long time. Like they win the catch-up award, you know what I'm saying? Of like, this is, I think black folks and minority groups have been saying this for the longest time, that there has been this lack of understanding of what being a Christian is, what the Christian faith actually is. And it takes a deep, intentional work outside of just like this theologian mind, but also like a combination of like mind, body, and spirit, right?
Yeah.
Moving outside of like just, obviously we spend a ton of time on faith, and we're going to continue to talk about that. But I'm curious about like the role. You mentioned that you're a musician. What role has music played in your life?
Great question. I mean, it's been a foundational piece of my life for as long as I can remember. My mom was basically like a concert level pianist growing up, and also an amazing singer. So like I grew up with music in the house all the time.
Wow.
Granted, a lot of it was like worship music, but
Okay.
it's
a start.
It's a start. It's something. There were some bops back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I was just like singing from the time that I learned how, I guess. And it wasn't until actually like high school that I started seriously embracing it. Kind of got this grit at one point, because this sounds so petty, but I wasn't being noticed by my choir teacher. And so I like got really determined. I was like, I'm going to make my choir teacher notice me. And that was kind of the first time that my confidence, I guess, met music. And from that point forward, I realized that like it was something that I wanted to do, and started producing like junior year of high school, and fast forward all the way to today, just been doing that. And I think that music has always it's definitely been like a coping mechanism at times, and I would say a healthy one, because something that I really love is like instrumental, or what's hilarious about this is probably like the least black thing, is like house music, right? Like just the steady like bass and the beat.
I got a podcast I could send you that house music was started by black people. So
100%.
Yeah.
And some people know that. Not everyone knows that. But so something about it is like very soothing, and actually I've had moments that are very similar to meditation because of music like that. And because my mind is always like running at top speed, music has been a place where I feel like I can kind of just be and like let all of those things kind of fade into the background. I've had incredible spiritual encounters to music most of my life. Not even Christian songs, actually, most of the time. It's other things. But yeah.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Was it middle school or junior year of high school that you said that like this is this is something that I want to do?
Yeah, junior year of high school. Yeah, in middle school I was a brat because my choir teacher would try and get me to sing and I just wouldn't. I I didn't want to. I didn't want to do anything that people told me to do.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
but,
For music, you mentioned that has been like a coping mechanism. Tell me more about that. I'm really curious.
I mean, it's funny because when I said that, like I instantly pictured like an angsty picture on Facebook that's like music is my coping mechanism or something like that, you know, from like 2006 emo, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've definitely like I've had some traumatic experiences in my life. I think most people have. There are certain songs or certain artists that every time I listen to them, not only do I feel like known, I feel supported and encouraged and hopeful through that music, and it does really help my mental state. Yeah,
That's great. Who's some of your go-to artists?
no, I knew you were gonna ask that.
Well, I know for like a musician or people that care about music, like same thing. It just
Yeah.
I feel the same pain when somebody asks. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Totally.
If you answer that question however you want, how about that?
Okay, well, there's one song that I have to mention only because it really has played a huge role in my life. I literally have a tattoo of the lyrics, which is, oh my gosh, that's so e-girl to do. But there's an artist named Amanda Cook. She used to be with Bethel. And she's always kind of been on, I would consider like the fringe of the evangelical charismatic movement. She's a lot more poetic, a lot more willing to listen and just, yeah. But she writes incredible songs, and there's a song
she's an incredible writer.
There's a song called The Voyage, and it's really all about kind of like setting off into the unknown, but also being sure that like God is going to be with you no matter where you end up. And that song was really pivotal in my coming out process. It was really pivotal in me leaving the church. It's been pivotal in several moments of my life. Yeah, so that's definitely one that I come back to.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see. John Bellion is someone that most people that know me know that I'm obsessed, so that's no secret. Just a freaking phenomenal songwriter. He can rap, he can sing, he can do it all. It's not fair.
And he plays so much with his producing. It's like fun, but then he'll talk about something so heavy in like the lyrics. It's really good. He's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. I think something that I admire about him also is that he has stayed off of social media. He does not try to entertain people really. He's very private about his life and his family, and like literally to this day no one knows if he's married, and it's an ongoing debate and we don't know.
That's hilarious.
And I just think I really respect that.
Okay, I love it. I just want to note, it's just funny. There's some people who are going to be annoyed by this, but like, what helped in your coming out was like a Christian artist. Well, she used to be. I don't know if she still is formally known as, but
yes. I
it's
think
just.
she is. I think she's doing.
It's
stuff
just.
with Maverick
I
City,
just.
so,
yeah. So I just want to point that out. You know. Awesome. All right. So you already said it, but you don't go to church anymore. Why?
That is correct. So it's not that I'm not open to church at this point. There's a few reasons though. I mean, we went to the same church for
we did. That's what
everyone
we met.
that's listening. You know, that's a whole thing.
Yeah,
But
met in the worship team. Yes.
We sang only William Matthews.
Damn.
I'm like, girl, we're not gospel singers. Like, we can put a little soul in there, but like, we're not gospel singers.
Literally not even gospel. Neither one of us are gospel singers.
Nope.
Neither one of us. And I was like, I really wish I could sing gospel.
Same.
I cannot. I can't. Not my range.
The amount of times, man. But okay. So left my church for multiple reasons. At the forefront was issues of race and just an unwillingness to be anti-racist and to do the work. And then second, I was like, I'm not going to put myself in any faith community where I can't fully be myself and where other people can't fully be themselves. I've just seen there's just a lot of fakeness, and that's nothing new per se, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I realized like I hadn't been, this is the first time really in my life that I haven't been part of a church. And so, 26. And so I'm like, it's about time that I just gave it a break and see how I feel. And I was kind of expecting to like go like all the way to atheism. Like I was just like thought that the fall was just never gonna stop until I hit the bottom, you know?
Yep.
And I found that in my absence, like there's been an immense fluctuation. A while back, I was actually meditating and talking to God, and something came to mind, and I felt like it was from God, which is basically that spirituality is like breathing, and sometimes it's an inhale and sometimes it's an exhale. It's not a static thing. And so when I was thinking even in regard to my own spirituality and my own spiritual beliefs, I'm like, yeah, it's okay that it's not always the same. It doesn't always have to be the same. There are moments that I inhale and there are moments that I exhale. And that's kind of been the process for me. I somehow still respond on a very visceral level to some worship music when I hear it playing. And I'm like, I don't know how this is the case. I've done every bad thing according to Christianity. I should not be feeling this, but I do. I'm open to church, but again, I won't attend a church that is not fully affirming of all people and fully accepting. It's not fully affirming to allow LGBT people into the church, but not allow them to serve, because we have the same, if we are operating under the assumption that we have the same Holy Spirit in all of us, then not like, it doesn't make sense. So
No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you miss about church? Like,
God, yeah. I mean, on a basic level, like if we take like truth out of the conversation, like church meets a social need, a very fundamental social need. You see people every week. And I mean, I know that our experiences being seen in church are a little bit varied, but like there are people, you know, that you're in relationship with, and there's a structure to it. And so I definitely miss that. I miss seeing people. I miss the feeling of being part of something. But I've also learned to not crave it as much, because I know that something isn't always better than nothing. And yeah, but I definitely miss people. I miss singing. I really miss singing. I just realized that, like, dude, like worship church is such a built-in way of singing, and I'm very out of practice now. I'm like, oh my God. But
You're telling me, man, it's been almost 2 years. So something that's very typical for me is like I will just sing just everything, and just like worship songs when I'm frustrated, stressed out, whatever. I'll just start singing. But I haven't done that in like 2 years, and like I just recently started singing those songs again.
I feel that.
Just like very recently, and I'm just like, oh wow, it's been a minute. Like these songs came to mind, but it's just like, but first of all, I'm way out of practice. Like when they say it's you gotta practice that thing. But yeah, I think it's, oh God, I miss it too. Like even the setup and tear down, just like the singing randomly that you do when you're like rapping chords or whatever, and then people start harmonizing with you. You know what I'm saying? Just like the spontaneity of all of it, just being around musicians all the time. It's just yeah. That's the only place besides like university choir that, you know, I had that. And it's hard to find a place where you can just like, yo, do you want to jam? Like, let's go jam.
It is.
You don't do that, like, unless you're a musician, obviously, but, you know.
Yeah, it's true. There is something special and something to be said about, you know, the function of that kind of community. It really can be beneficial, and I think when it's operating in a healthy way, it is a good thing. So I definitely miss those times. I don't miss having to go to Chick-fil-A after every worship event because all these white ass people think Chick-fil-A is good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, nope.
Chick-fil-A is a big all right. It's like
It's
all
not
right.
even. That's generous. That is so generous. I could never eat Chick-fil-A in my life and be perfectly happy. But
I forget about Chick-fil-A. If people didn't mention it, like I would forget about it as a restaurant. That's like legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Where would you rather eat?
Anywhere.
Well, hold on. Chicken sandwich or like any chicken. Where would you go?
Literally. I mean, okay. I mean, I think Popeyes is honestly at the top of my list because their fried chicken, they're like the recipe that they have is just so good, so juicy,
Whatever they season is
so crispy. Yeah.
Yep.
But like Raising Cane's is great. There's just a bunch. We have a few new fried chicken spots, but like any chicken to me is better. Like even getting chicken strips at like a Red Robin is better than Chick-fil-A to me. And I know
I was not expecting so much shade for Chick-fil-A.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize to me. I mean, if I start getting emails and bad reviews, this dude spent 45 minutes talking about Chick-fil-A.
Bro, every time I like get asked to hang out like by people that I used to go to church with, it's like, yeah, we could go to Chick-fil-A, and I'm like, yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's
or we
5 other places I can name.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Sorry, Chick-fil-A. I'm sure.
Oh gosh, do you still hang out with folks that still go to church like consistently?
So, I mean, yes and no. I guess so. I was fully prepared when I left that I may lose all of my relationships. I just kind of had to accept that possibility. And for a while, it was pretty tough. Some relationships have kind of like reforged, which I wasn't expecting. So yeah, there are people that I still see maybe like once a month. And then there's also a group of people that have also been going through deconstruction. So many people I've talked to are actually on the downward spiral. I get a sick sense of satisfaction from it because I'm like, now you know.
I did too. I'm
Now
like,
you
I was
know.
trying to tell you years ago, and now all of a sudden, all right.
Yeah.
Catch-up award. I'm going to make that a thing. A catch-up award. Shout out Ashley. She knows who she is. She's the one that gave that to me. Catch-up award.
Yeah. So I've seen like some of those people, and that's kind of nice because I'm like, I'm far along enough in my process that like I know exactly where they're at, and I have a little bit of perspective, and so I'm thankful for that. And also just in the whole process, I'm like, I don't think I will ever be I've gone through experiencing anger at the church, and every once in a while that comes back up, but ultimately I'm like, I don't have ill will towards the church. I think that there is an ideal function, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, so I'm like open to hanging out with people and maintaining a relationship. I think the difference is now I'm not hiding at all, and I don't feel judged. Part of the whole process for me has also been breaking out of the dynamic of the authority figure, which is so antithetical to most of what you're taught in Christianity, which is all about honoring and respecting authority. And I remember we had to read this fucking book by John Bevere. God, what was it called? See, I can't even remember. I deleted it from my mind. But it was about respecting authority. And just the whole time I was reading it, I was like, this man is really going to be this tone deaf in this day and age, talking to black people about how they need to respect authority and honor. And I'm like, fuck cops, dude. Like,
yeah, no. Seriously.
And so kind of like in all of that, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like, even if I hang out with a former pastor, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm still their constituent, like they have any power or say over my life. And that sounds kind of harsh to people, but it's actually just a healthy boundary. And
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I didn't have that kind of respect when I was there. So I'm like, all right. But it's funny that like when you say that, people like, just like you said, like people are just like, whoa, like, hey man. I was like, first of all,
yeah,
you don't get it. Like you're not understanding. Like for for that role, like they answer to somebody higher, but like you that whole structure, you're operating out of whiteness anyways. Like for me to just have blind faith in this person and just he's supposed to like lead me like that, like
yeah,
I don't know about that. Like, and I was a pastor too. I know that there's a level of like
yeah,
gravity that comes with that, but like where I failed most was like expecting people to just listen to me because I had a title. You know what I'm
sure,
saying? Like
yeah,
you you can't just operate and function and do stuff like that. Like that's where we're in the situations we're in right now, where we see multiple pastors, multiple big name folks, even in the evangelical world, committing sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, all these different things. Sorry, I should have put a trigger warning. But anyways, like there's all these things that are happening, and like all these little flock don't know what to do, and then they're also not speaking out or
yeah,
holding these folks accountable. So nah,
yeah,
fam, like hold me to a high standard. That whole high standard is you actually like pushing back on the things that I say that are wrong, that I do
yeah,
wrong. So
yeah.
yeah,
There's we don't have to talk about this for too much longer, but there's a really
yeah.
good I don't know if you know who Brandy Miller or Carlos Rodriguez at all.
Oh, those names sound really familiar, but keep on going.
Brandy Miller's like a queer female theologian. Did not grow up in Christianity, which I find fascinating. And then Carlos Rodriguez is Puerto Rican, I believe. He used to be a pastor of like a megachurch, I think in Tennessee, could be wrong, but somewhere in the South.
So the podcast is actually called Reclaiming My Theology by Brandy Miller, and the name of that particular episode that Warwick is talking about is called From White Supremacy, Paternalism with Carlo A. Rodriguez. I included the link to that particular episode as well as the show itself in the show notes. Go check it out. Some really dope guests on that podcast.
And there's a really interesting episode on white patriarchy and especially how it's so prevalent in religious circles, and that there's this kind of expectation that okay, this person's going to walk onto the stage, they're going to say something, and I'm going to receive it because they're on the stage. And there's just this assumption of like a knowledge gap between the pastor and whoever the pastor is preaching to. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, yeah, they went to seminary, they may know more technical information, but at the same time, it's a weird dynamic, especially considering like what I said earlier. If everyone has access to the Holy Spirit and everyone can hear God, if everyone can receive, divine revelation, then that model is a little bit weird. And yeah, so that's something that I've considered, and kind of breaking out of that mindset is like, oh, just because you're there, because you have followers, because you're the pastor of a megachurch or whatever, that doesn't actually mean that I have to submit to your authority. And
Exactly. Going back to something like I was saying earlier, is like that again goes back to how American Christianity is done because of hypercapitalism, because of like
yeah,
ethnocentrism, all these different things. That like there is this idea that like if I become a pastor, I have authority, like I have power, I have I have sway, and that's why we have so many pastors. Like it's an incredible amount of pastors. It's like we
Yeah.
don't need this many pastors. Like
we do not.
if like we don't need this many. It's an incredible amount. So
Yeah.
many people going off and becoming pastors, and I'm like that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, for real. Like that's what you want to do. But I think they make it's so accessible that people can like quote unquote do it. But again, it's happening so fast that we have a bunch of people making
Yeah.
yeah
Also, like
profiting off of churches.
let's talk about privilege in that, because you
Yes.
see so many white Bible students starting to become pastors that are studying at maybe a Christian liberal arts university, going to seminary, and like that, and you don't see that happen with very many black people.
Yep.
And even in that, there is such a discrepancy in the amount of privilege and wealth and opportunity to actually pursue that. And that's why you just keep seeing like the same pastors turned out over and over again. And this is no offense to pastors, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, we really don't need more of that. We need a diverse collection of voices.
That actually could be a separate podcast too.
Oh my
Anyways,
God.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I found the co-host. All right. So, what does faith mean to you?
Oh gosh. Faith is something that I've been kind of examining also, because at times I think it's just a cruel cosmic joke. That there's a reality that might be real that we can't prove, and the only way that you can participate in it is to suspend your disbelief and have faith. And I think it is kind of a logical mind fuck.
Yes, all of it.
And so honestly, I think it's something that I'm definitely still wrestling with and exploring. I don't know. This is maybe not distinctly tied, but I think in that process, a lot of what's been helpful is reclaiming myself and realizing like I don't belong to anyone. And even like there's a kind of a common thing in evangelical culture, which is like, I belong to God, or like, we sing a lot of songs, I belong to you, things like that. And I started saying to myself, like, I am my own, I belong to myself, and I have choice in what I give myself to, if I choose to give myself to something. And that's been incredibly liberating, like in my faith process, because I don't feel trapped or bound to something. It's like I actually am in control of what I choose and what I believe. I mean, I guess faith is a choice, but I don't consider it like a binding contract, which is, I think, kind of how it's been presented.
Yeah. No, tell me more about that, like a binding contract. I like that take, is what I'm saying. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, if you've thought more deeply on that.
Well, I think something that's always confused me is like the one unforgivable sin, according to, our interpretation of Scripture, is unbelief or slandering the Holy Spirit. But the thing about that for me is also like, but as soon as you choose to believe again, then like you're good, right? Like so it's really not an unforgivable sin, which kind of then begs the question. It's like, what's the point in the first place? I don't know. I'm getting on a tangent. This is like pretty commonly known, I guess, of religious control, that religion seeks to control the population in some way. It may not be as like blatant. It can be in subtle ways. There's a lot of emotional and spiritual manipulation, especially in the evangelical church. Like, I think even evangelicals would hopefully be able to admit that.
Yep.
And I think so much of that relationship is fear-based, that if I don't do this, or if I do this, then I will be excommunicated, or I will go to hell, or this, that, and the other is going to happen. And that creates like such a construct in our minds with how we interact with the world. Why we're not willing to help some people, why we're so passionate about other things. And I think that once I kind of started to like break away from that binding mentality, that I just felt a lot more free to kind of just like be a good person. I don't know, like that sounds weird, but I'm like, I don't need the construct of evangelicalism to help this homeless person, for example, or to fight for injustice. I'm like, I feel the freedom to like be pro-life if I want to, but not because like I'm in evangelicalism, you know. I'm definitely pro-choice, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just there are certain things that I think, and something that I heard all the time, especially at Biola, was just like, Christianity is unique for this reason, because we do this, because it's the only religion that forgives or whatever. And I'm just like, that's such bullshit. Like, do you actually believe that?
Yeah, it's
like,
not true.
Come on. And like stepping away from it, I'm like, oh, I'm not all of a sudden just like a terrible person. I'm like, I still have a a very strong moral center. There are things that I think are right. There are things that I think are absolutely evil, morally reprehensible. I don't think that that's like distinctly because of Christianity. Well, that's another conversation. But you know, you get my point. You get my point. So
I get you. Yeah.
yeah, and the thing with like, so going back to the whole binding idea, it kind of goes back to I choose what I give myself to, and I choose if I'm going to submit to an authority, like that's my choice. That's not going to be forced on me. And yeah, so much of evangelicalism has felt like that. Like I have to do this to please someone else, and that's a very strange mindset, especially when that person you've never actually met.
Yes. Yeah, the thing that struck me the most when you're saying that is like feeling obligated to well, essentially what I got from a part of what you said was like feeling obligated to have like this moral compass or these moral beliefs, or to do right or to do justice because of the faith that I have. And I'm wondering, just maybe, besides white supremacy, but like, is that how American evangelicalism is operating? That like this because what you just described is a transactional faith. It's not like deep rooted, like it's not a belief. It's like, I'm doing this because like I need to get into heaven. I need a ticket to heaven. So yeah, that just I've never heard it structured that way, or it's been a while since I've heard it that laid out that way.
Well, and here's the thing that I want to say to that is that like religion being transactional is not actually like a foreign concept. Like most religious experiences involve a form of I do this so that this happens or whatever. The thing that makes that toxic in Christianity specifically is that you have this one side that is very transactional, but then you also have this other side that is constantly telling you it's all about relationship, that it's all about you and Jesus. So then you're like, okay, it's about me and Jesus. But then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to do this, because if you were in right relationship with Jesus, you wouldn't be doing those things, because that's their assumption, that's their worldview on what it means to follow Jesus. And so I'm like, the danger to me isn't necessarily the transactional nature. It's this cognitive dissonance that is always being pushed at people. And so I'm like, no wonder people are having mental breakdowns in church. I had so many mental breakdowns I had several on stage in the middle of worship where I had to like walk off because I was just like tears, and I'm like, I cannot stop. I don't know what's happening.
The cognitive that's the part that got me, the cognitive dissonance there. Just like this, oof, I just had you just gave me an aha moment. I'm gonna have to sit in that for a little while. Like, because the fact of like, it's my relationship with Jesus. It's my relationship, but you're telling me what my relationship needs to look like. But it's my relationship. That sounds like that friend that always has something to say about like you and your partner. Like, it always has something to say, but they ain't in a relationship. Like, but you always got something to say about mine. Like that 100%. Just get out of here. No, all right. I'm gonna sit with that for a minute.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
How has your faith and identity interacted together in recent years?
I will try and keep this as the least tangential that I can. So I think, the major parts of my identity that I would say like I've been processing in the last, I'm just going to say 5 years, have been sexual orientation and my race. I think those are probably the two biggest things. And I mentioned earlier, growing up, like grew up in a very Christian household, grew up in the Bible Belt. Like I was very immersed in Christian culture, but my mom, and I gotta thank my mom for this, like was not that kind of person. She's always been just so like free and open to things. Her encounter with God at an early age was devoid of influence from other people. Like she actually had a very spiritual encounter in which she encountered God, and then it was after that she started going to church and all of those things. So that kind of, I think, was passed down to me. So like even though I was raised in it, it was never like a slap on the hand kind of thing growing up. That's something that came later on through church. So like in my adult life, I've been kind of trying to nail down like the core of what I grew up with. Like, okay, what were those experiences that I had as a child that I can't explain away? They could totally be in my head, or there's a spiritual reality. And I am prone to think that there's a spiritual reality. It's just very hard for me to not think that. And as I got older, obviously, wrestling with sexuality. For a long time, it was a really painful struggle, and I did a lot of just dismissal of it to begin with. I remember the first, I remember just like the first time like looking up pictures of Chris Evans' pecs on our old computer, and yeah, that's embarrassing, but oh well. And kind of being like, oh, okay, like this is doing something for me.
Yeah.
And there was like a lot of back and forth for years, and kind of just like I was very aware of like spiritual realities or whatever. So like trying to like pray against those things. And yeah, my mom was always really gracious in the process. She never shamed me for anything. And so I had a very blessed like kind of coming out discovery experience, I guess. But it really wasn't until college that it came to a head, because I remember having like this moment sophomore year in the off-campus apartments at Biola in Tradewinds, if you remember what that was. I was just on the floor and I could not move. I was so depressed and just just had this moment where I felt God say really clearly, like, how do you expect to feel my love if you won't love yourself, basically? And it was just a really simple thing, but I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. If I am created in the image of God, then like I should love that image regardless of what it looks like. And at that time I also got a tenacity in me, and I kind of made this oath, I guess, where I was like, I'm not going to let anyone take Jesus away from me, whether that be the church or whether that be the world. Which is just a solidification of my experience being in the middle all of my life. I swear. Like, I just always find myself between two worlds. I read all of the clobber passages. Like, I was very well aware of the arguments against homosexuality and those things. But I also knew there's a verse in the Bible that says, like, I know who I've believed, and that's kind of something that I stuck to. It was like, no, I know the encounters that I had as a child were real, and I know that the God that I serve and that I love could care less, or he cares so much, that like, of course, like this wouldn't separate me from his love. Like that's so weird. That's such a weird idea. And
it's super weird. It's
Yeah.
so weird. When you stop and think about it, it's like, really? Like that's it?
Like universe, like all of the crazy things in the universe, and like that's the thing that Anyway.
Yeah.
So like I knew in my heart for a while that who I wasn't in conflict with who God was. which already put me outside of orthodoxy. And so, like, in my church experience, you know, I presented as one way for a long time. Like, I didn't hide anything. I remember my first interview with our worship pastor, and was just very open, like, about my whole process. And they were like, okay, cool. And, you know, that was like a little bit of bypassing because it never came up in conversations in like the 4 years that I was there. Which just kind of meant that it's like, it's fine as long as, you know, we're not talking about it or doing anything. So, and that whole process, like, it worked for a time until it didn't.
Yes, exactly.
And so I'm very grateful to be where I am now. And race, I mean, I've never doubted that God would love me because of my race. I think the thing with race and faith has been specifically like, oh, do I actually believe all of these things because these were colonizers that forced this onto my people hundreds of years ago. And so I think race has kind of deconstructed even the whole framework of Christianity for me. And I know that there's like a big movement among Black Christians to kind of reclaim the gospel, reclaim those things. And that's been really good to see because sometimes I'm just like, I just want to throw it all away. Like, fuck it all. Like, none of it is good. But then I see people that are doing work and I'm like, okay, actually, like, let me slow down. Let me look at this. Let me be gracious towards people's processes. And that's been really affirming. And I feel like I'm able to now incorporate different aspects of spirituality, whether that be from Buddhism or like folk religion or Christianity or even Catholicism. I find aspects of the like the symbols and the liturgy in Catholicism to be really beautiful. So I just feel I feel like I have a much more holistic spirituality at this point. So
okay, I don't have any other follow-up questions. This has been fun. I tell you, this has been a fun conversation. I really do appreciate you hopping on and sharing so much. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, man.